iRadio, your eye on South Sudan.
Sounds of the week on iRadio.
عليكم الله إنتوا كده وفروا لنا أمني ولا دايرين كلامنا كده إنتوا أكونوا حال بس كنتوا أمني بتاع الجنوبين ده في جواكالا بتاعهم بس وما تريادة بداية بتاعه هو شهر 4 أنينا دايرين نظروا عشان نكلسوا من مشاكل بتاع الجنوب ده أنا إيمان الله أنا ما قاعد أشعر أنا جاي أسزر شغل بتاعنا الأسف نعمله في الزراعة ده جيت بتلقوا بتاع بعرف أنا علينا زرعة فول ودرني ندي في جواه ومنه لعد ما ينسوا أنا تلات فول بتاعي أنا بقوم يعني زمن زرع نمشي زرع إيمانو اللي قبل ساعة 4-5 لازم أنا نكون جوا مدينة زرع ده بمشي كده يعني الوضع ما بيساعدني إنه أنا أمشي أنوم في كلا ولا أقعد يومين 3-4 يوم يا جماعة إنتوا عارفونا ويدونا فرق خليني أعيش زي ناس.
Sounds of the week on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. Sounds of the week on iRadio. Live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, this is iRadio 1 o'clock news. First, here are the headlines. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has received 104 tractors from the Ministry of Finance to boost agricultural productivity across the country. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has urged an immediate end to hostilities and restoration of calm in Morobonye County, Central Equatoria State, following renewed clashes between government forces and the SPLA-IO that have displaced civilians and heightened tensions in the region. And the government has notified civil servants and organized forces regarding the payment of April 2025 salaries as promised by the Ministry of Finance. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Baria Johnson, and now the news in detail. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has received 104 tractors from the Ministry of Finance to boost agricultural productivity across the country. Speaking at the handover event yesterday, Hussein Abdulbagi Akol, Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, emphasized the need for farmers to be serious and committed this season. Minister Abdulbagi expressed hope that the new tractors will kickstart tangible progress in food production and contribute to the country's economic recovery. He says they are going to work closely with farmers to increase productivity and secure food supply in the country. Minister Abdulbagi spoke on State TV SSBC yesterday.
And we also want them to be serious and committed so that we can start tangible work in this season. And now we started with 104 directors with implements which are present with us in our hand now. I think we are going to start to boost the economic of this country. And this day is important for me and for my people in the Ministry of Agriculture and for all the farmers in the South Sudan that we are going to start working with them closely so that we can boost the economic of this country, and we have to increase our productivity and food security. And we also want them to be serious and committed.
Farmers across the country have consistently raised concerns about insufficient government support, particularly in pest control, access to fuel, and lack of a stable market for their produce. Earlier this month, the economic cluster approved 62 billion SSP to support farming activities ahead of the rainy season. Following the meeting, the Deputy Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Lila Albino Akol, directed all state governors and chief administrators to allocate 250,000 hectares of land, each for agricultural use. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has urged an immediate end to hostilities and restoration of calm in Morobo and Yei counties, Central Equatoria State, following renewed clashes between government forces and the SPLA-IO that have displaced civilians and heightened tensions in the region. In a statement shared with iRadio, UNMISS spokesperson Brianka Chaudhry urged all military actors to refrain from conflict and prioritize the protection of civilians. She warned that the escalating violence is deepening South Sudan's already fragile political and security landscape, placing civilian lives in serious jeopardy. Yesterday, Morobo County Commissioner said more than 7,000 internally displaced persons who fled fighting in the area are in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Commissioner Charles Databulen told iRadio that the IDPs who fled the clashes between government forces and the opposition forces in Panyume and Bulumbi Payams are now sheltering in schools and churches.
The United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, is deeply concerned by reports of clashes between the South Sudan People's Defense Forces and Sudan People's Liberation Army in opposition in Morobo and Yei counties, Central Equatoria State, which have led to civilian displacement and casualties. The mission calls for an immediate cessation of hostilities and restoration of calm, given already fragile political and security conditions in the country. UNMISS appeals to all military actors to refrain from conflict, prioritize the protection of civilians, resolve differences through dialogue, and ensure unimpeded access for peacekeepers to reinforce security. For its part, the mission is engaging intensively with authorities, security actors, faith-based and traditional leaders, civil society organizations, youth, and community members to prevent the situation from deteriorating further.
The Commissioner General of the South Sudan Revenue Authority has called for a review of the country's tax and customs law to ensure a more unified and efficient collection system. Simon Akwe-Deng says this review will clarify which taxes should be collected by the national government and which should be handled by state governments. Currently, Akwe explains the tax system lacks coordination, creating a burden for businesses. He argues that some taxes currently collected by the state should instead fall under the national government's responsibility. Akwe was speaking yesterday at the first ever trade forum in Juba.
We need to review our Taxation Act 2009. We need to review the Custom Act, and we need to come up with a new law, Tax Harmonization Act. This law will have to define taxes that will be collected by the national government, and taxes that will be collected by the state government, and taxes that will be collected by the local government. That law is required because the Governors Forum gives themselves the responsibility to determine what they have to collect. Governors Forum is not a law. The states give themselves what to collect. My colleague from Central Equatoria, I challenge you. We are collecting business profit tax. You are not supposed to do that. You are not supposed to collect BPT because it is not your prerogative. When you call your Commissioner of Taxes Commissioner General. I am a Commissioner General. There is another Commissioner in Central Equatoria. What PIT is the state supposed to collect, and which PIT is the state supposed not to collect? This is the challenges our private sector is having. We need to review our taxation.
Akwe went on to say that multiple illegal revenue collections are taking place and that double taxation of businesses needs to stop.
All these collections, some of them are very illegal. Issues of marriage, management fees, all those fees that have different, very awkward names. We don't need to collect those ones because the same people that we collect from in Juba, Honorable Minister, are the same people the Central Equatorial Government collect from. And that is a double taxation on the private sector. So these are issues that need to be resolved. We will continue to look for ways to improve our tax systems, and one of them is to digitize. Very soon we'll introduce the ETR machines in our hotels and in our apartments. and restaurants to collect these little taxes that you pay every day. All
In November 2021, President Salva Kiir warned that states and government institutions should not interfere with non-oil revenue collection following a heated debate at the Governors Forum. A workshop later held in May clarified which levels of government should be responsible for different taxes, with the National Revenue Authority offering support to state to improve their tax systems. You are listening to iRadio Afternoon News. The government has notified civil servants and organized forces regarding the payment of their April 2025 salaries as promised by the Minister of Finance. The First Undersecretary at the Ministry of Finance and Planning, Arop Noy Arop, confirmed this in a statement yesterday. According to Arop, all salaries for the relevant spending agencies have been posted to their respective accounts and are now ready for payment to civil servants, organized forces, foreign missions, states, and administrative areas. He stated, and I quote, "This pronouncement of successful processing of salaries for April 2025 within 24 days is a fundamental testament to our unwavering commitment to the mentioned directives." End quote. The payment, which began in March of this year, follows a period in which civil servants, the army and organized forces went without pay for nearly a year. The government attributed the non-payment to the deteriorating economy caused by the shutdown of oil production, which constitutes roughly 98% of national revenue. Over the course of this week, many South Sudanese expressed concern on the dawn and sundown programs about whether the government will uphold its February promise to pay salaries on time, as pledged by Vice President for Economic Cluster, Dr. Benjamin Bolmel. Bolmel made the commitment following a directive from President Salva Kiir after his appointment in early February. And finally, President Salva Kiir has relieved and appointed several senior officials across different ministries and commissions. In a series of presidential decrees read on state television SSBC last night, the president relieved engineer Lual Choldag from his position as Director General of the Petroleum Exploration and Production Authority in the Ministry of Petroleum. He was replaced by engineer Joseph Isbon Waiwai Bilali. The changes were made pursuant to the Transitional Constitution of South Sudan 2011 as amended and the Petroleum Act of 2012. Meanwhile, William Chan was relieved from his role as Undersecretary in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management. President Kiir appointed Dr. Denis Marial to replace him. The changes were made in accordance with the Civil Service Act of 2011. In a separate decree, President Kiir made reshuffles at the National Petroleum and Gas Commission. He relieved engineer Cesar Olia Marco from his position as chairperson, while Dr. Khalid Maroriak was relieved as deputy chairperson. In their place, President Kiir appointed engineer Aler Bulengong as chairperson and Arcangelo Okwang as deputy chairperson of the commission. This is iRadio News, and now to the regional and international news with Madrama James.
Thanks, let's have a look at some of the stories trending around the globe. A Rwandan beekeeper living in the US has been arrested over his alleged involvement in the 1994 genocide in his country. Faustin Zambakosi is accused of committing heinous act of violence abroad when he served as a local leader at the start of genocide, Justice Department said. The 65-year-old suspect was also charged with visa fraud and attempted naturalization fraud when he moved to the US in 2003. He pleaded not guilty to the charges and was released on bail. Elsewhere, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has pledged to invest $1.2 billion, 580 million euros in a strategic reserve for critical minerals if he wins next month's election as trade tensions escalate. The announcement came after China imposed export restrictions on 7 rare earth elements essential to the production of advanced technologies including electric vehicles, fighter jets, and robots. China's control applied to all countries but were widely seen as a retaliation to US President Donald Trump's tariff. Finally, India's army chief will review security arrangement on Friday and visit the site of a deadly attack on tourists in Indian Kashmir earlier this week, with fears of fresh tension with the long-term rival and neighbor Pakistan sparking markets. India has said there were Pakistan elements in Tuesday's attack when militants shot 26 men in a mid-war in Palgam area, and Islamabad has denied any involvement. These are some of the stories trending around the globe.
Thank you, Madrama James. And now to the sports news with Emmanuel Joseph Akile.
Football action continues in the South Sudan Premier League today as Qatar FC takes on Al Salam Awil at 3 p.m. at Juba National Stadium. Qatar FC, who sit comfortably at the top of the table with 46 points, will be looking to maintain their dominant form after a stunning 6-1 victory over Koryombor in their last outing. Meanwhile, Al Salam Awil, currently 7th with 27 points, came into March riding a wave of confidence after back-to-back wins against Olympic Rang and Wajuma in the Bahr al-Ghazal derby, where they edged a 3-2 thriller. In yesterday's matches, Holy Family FC snatched a dramatic late equalizer to draw, moving them to 42 points in the third place. Their opponents, Young Star FC, also managed a high-scoring 3-3 draw, but remain in the 13th place with 12 points from 19 matches, just ahead of last place Nile City. Young Stars Ladu Pellegrino was named man of the match after netting 2 goals in the encounter. Elsewhere, the race to the African Championship final heats up as Al Ahli of Egypt prepares to face Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa in a high-stakes return leg. The first leg in Pretoria ended in a 0-0 stalemate, leaving everything to play for as both teams eye a spot in the final match. Meanwhile, fellow Egyptian side Pyramids FC are also in contention as they gear up to take on Orlando Pirates. Their first leg also ended in a goalless draw, setting up a 10-second encounter with a place in the final on the line. Both matches promised thrilling action as 4 of Africa's top clubs battle for continental glory. And finally, in the basketball, the Oklahoma City Thunder recovered a 29-point deficit to beat the Memphis Grizzlies 114-108 points and take a 3-0 series lead in the Western Conference playoffs. The Grizzlies were in full control of the match at the start of the third quarter, up 77-51 points and on course to strike back in the series. That's all from the world of sports, and back to you, Barry Johnson.
You are listening to iRadio News, and to end this bulletin, here are the headlines once again. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has received 104 tractors from the Ministry of Finance to boost agricultural productivity across the country. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has urged an immediate end to hostilities and restoration of calm in Morobonye County, Central Equatoria State, following renewed clashes between government forces and the SPLA-IO that have displaced civilians and heightened tensions in the region. And the government has notified civil servants and organized forces regarding the payment of their April 2025 salaries as promised by the Ministry of Finance. That's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. If there is a story or an event you would like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message on +211 925 287870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on X at iRadio Juba, like our Facebook page, iRadio, subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 1:30. I am Barry Johnson. Thank you for listening.